Okay, this is 7th grade lesson 4.4. Our objective: students will use simple interest formula and knowledge of an equation for solving for different variables of the formula. The standards covered are 7RP3 and 7EE3. The page numbers out of the hardcover book are pages 178 through 183, and out of the practice journal, pages 101 through 104. Today we're going to be working with the interest rate formula. So the first thing is we have to kind of break down what the formula is. So our simple interest is just basically the amount of interest that we pay per year. So it's not adding on interest from previous years. So this is the most basic form of solving for interest. Okay, so our equation we have is I, which stands for interest, equals our P, which is our principal. That's how much either money we borrow or we loan to somebody. Our annual interest rate is what our R stands for. That's just our percentage rate. And then our T stands for time, and we're going to use years this time. So if we go through and solve these problems and they give us in terms of months, we're going to have to convert that into the decimal form of a part of a year. So it says an account earns simple interest. Find the interest earned and then find the balance of the account. So we're going to use this equation. So we have $1,500 at 4% for 5 years. So our $1,500 is our principal. Our 4% is our rate, and our 5 is our number of years. So now we're just going to plug in that information into this equation. Okay, so when we go through to do this, we'll go ahead and write I, our interest, equals our principal is 1,500 times the percent, we're going to write as 0.04, times the number of years, which is 5. So since we already have our interest by itself, we're going to go ahead and just punch in on our calculator the exact same way that we see it. So 1,500 times 0.04 times 5 gives us $300. So our interest over the 5 years is we get paid $300. The second part of the question says, find the balance of the account. So if I had originally $1,500 and I just earned $300 interest, that's money that the bank is giving me to be able to use that $1,500. We're going to go ahead and add those two together. $1,500 plus the $300 interest. So this was our principal plus our interest is going to give us $1,800 for a balance. Okay, so our balance is just taking our interest that we earned plus what we originally had in there. Now this is assuming that you don't ever take any money out. So in the end, at the end of 5 years, we would have $1,800 in that account. Okay, so let's go ahead and try another one. Okay, so we have $1,800 at 6.5% interest for 30 months. So here's where it's a little bit different. Remember, we need to use years. So we need to convert that 30 months into years. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and divide by 12. Okay, so 30 divided by 12 gives me 2.5. So instead of using 30 months, we're going to use 2.5 years. Okay, so our information, well, our 1,800 is our principal, our 6.5% is our rate, and then this is now our time, is using the 2.5 years. So we're going to plug that into this equation up here. Okay, so our interest equals our principal was 1,800 times our R, which is our rate, 0.065 as a decimal, and then times the number of years, 2.5. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and multiply this all out. Since we already have I by itself, we're going to go ahead and just multiply it the way that we see it. So 1,800 times 0.065 times 2.5. And when we do that, I just found out that the interest is $292.50. Okay, so now if they wanted us to find the balance, well, we're going to go ahead and add our interest plus our principal, what we originally had, which was $1,800. And that's going to give us our balance. Okay, so 292.5 times plus 1,800. And that gives me, wow, I punched it in wrong, 1,800 plus 292.50 gives me $2,000 $92.50. So that would be our balance. So these are our two answers. This is our interest. This is our balance at the end of that 2.5 years. Okay, so let's go ahead and try another one. Okay, so this time we have a principal of $16.75 at a rate of 4.6 for 4 years. That's our time. So what I want you guys to do is go ahead and pause your video and work your way through substituting in these things into this equation, and then solve for your interest as well as your balance of your account. So go ahead and pause your video now and work your way through this. Okay, so the interest you should have found out was $308.20, and the balance ended up being $1,983.20. Okay, so that's working with this solving just for that interest. So that's the most basic form. Okay, so sometimes they're going to have us find a different part of the equation. So when they do that, they're going to go ahead and identify what each of the things is. So here they're telling us that the I is $24. So I'm going to do basic substitution. So my I, which is right here, was $24. So 24, and I'm going to put my equal sign, equals the P, which is my next number, is $400, times R, which they didn't give me, so I don't have that yet. I'm not even going to write it down. I'm going to put that at the very end. And then times T was 2 years. So 2. So then I'm going to put my R at the end. And the only reason I'm doing that is just to make it visually easier to look at. Okay, so now when I go through to solve this, I want to get R by itself. So my first step is to combine these two numbers. So when I do that, 400 times 2 gives me 800. I still have R. And then over here I have 24. Okay, so now to get R by itself, right now it's 800 times R. We're going to divide by 800. To get rid of it, divide by 800. So on my calculator, I'm going to punch in 24 divided by 800. When I do that, I get 0.03. Now remember, we're figuring the percentage, find the interest rate. So rate is a percentage, that would be 3%. So I just found out that we were earning 3% on that account, okay? And I don't have to do a second step here, they just wanted to know what the percent rate was. Okay, so let's try one more. So if we go through and substitute in for each of our numbers. So our I, they told us right here, is $562.50 equals, the P is next. So P was 1,500. They didn't give me R. My last one was a T. So my T was 5 years. So times 5. And then I'm going to put the R at the end because we're multiplying between all three of those. So it doesn't matter the order that I put them in. I like to put the letter at the end. If you don't mind the letter in the middle, then you can go ahead and write it out that way. Okay, so my next step is to go ahead and put these together. Okay, so I have 562.50 equals 1,500 times 5 is going to give me 7,500. Times my rate, which I don't know. So now I want to get that R by itself. Divide by 7,500. So divide over here by 7,500. So I'll punch in on my calculator, $562.50 divided by 7,500. And when I do that, I get 0.075 on my calculator. Now remember, it's asking for the rate. That's a percent. So we're going to go 2 places, and we find out that it's 7.5%. Okay. So that's working here. We went ahead and we solved for the rate. Remember, rate is a percent, so you're going to have to realize that when you give your final answer, you need to give it in its percent form, not leave it as a decimal. Okay, so sometimes they're going to go ahead and give us everything and ask us to find the amount of time. Same steps as what we previously did. It's just this time they're going to give us the R and not the T. Okay, so our I was 30 equals, the P was 500. This time they're giving us the R, so I'm going to write this as its decimal form, 0.03. And then times T, we don't know. Okay, so my first step is to go ahead and put these together. So 500 times 0.03 gives me 15. I still have T left, and then I have a 30 here. So now I want to get T by itself, so we'll divide by 15. Divide by 15. 30 divided by 15, I just found out that the time equals 2, and it's 2 years. Okay, remember when it's rate, when you're going to get decimal numbers for rate, that you need to go ahead and change that to its percent form. Here we're finding the time, that's why we didn't have to go through and change. We changed the percent that we initially had. Okay, so let's try another one. So substituting into our equation, I was 54 equals, the P was 800. The R was 4.5%, so that's 0.045 as a decimal. And then times T, we don't know. Okay, so we're going to put those together. 800 times 0.045 gives me 36 times T, and then I have 54 here. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and divide by 36, sorry. Because I want to get T by itself, so divide on this side by 36. 54 divided by 36 gives me 1.5. So that means 1.5 years. Okay, 1.5 years. If you wanted to change that into months, it would be 18 months. Okay, your choice, but most likely you'd leave it as 1.5 years. Okay, so that's working with substituting in. And as long as you know 3 of those 4, you're going to be able to solve for that 4th situation. Okay, so here we're going to go ahead and do a couple story problems. So here they're going to give us a story problem. So I'm just basically going to show you how to pull the information out of there. It says you put $500 into a savings account. So that's what you originally put in there. That's your principal. The account earns 3%. So there's our rate per year. What is the interest rate earned after 3 years? There's our time. And then what is the balance after 3 years? So we're going to go ahead and solve for our interest because that's the only letter. We have our P, we have our R, we have our T. We're solving for I. So we've got I equals $500 times our rate was 3%, so 0.03, times our time of 3 years. Okay, so everything, I is by itself, so everything else is on the right side, so I'm just going to punch it in the way I see it. 500 times 0.03 times 3 gives us 45. So my interest was $45. Okay, but it also asked me what would my balance be, right? So the balance is what I originally had, 500 plus the interest that I just found. So I'm going to add my original number in there, which gives me $545. Okay, so your interest was 45, your balance was $545 at the end of 3 years. Okay, so let's try another one of those. Okay, so this is the same concept that we were just doing. It's just that now they're going to give it to us in story problem format. Okay, you put $500 into a savings account. It earns 3%. What is the interest earned after 9 months? Oh, wow. Okay, so here's our principal. Here's our rate. 9 months is our time, but remember we have to go in terms of years. So we're going to have to divide this by 12 because there's 12 months in a year, and that's going to give me 0.75. Okay, so we're going to use 0.75 for our time. Okay, so we'll plug everything in. So our interest equals 500 was our principal, times our rate was 0.03, times our time was 0.75. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and punch it in the way we see it. 500 times 0.03 times 0.75. And when we do that, we get our interest equals 11.25. Okay, they also want the balance. So I just earned $11.25 in interest, and I originally had $500. So we're going to add those two together, and when I add that, I get $511.25. So this is our balance. This was our interest. Okay, so those are our answers to A and B. Okay, so once again, learning how to identify what's principal. That's always either what you take out in a loan or what you loan to somebody or put into a savings account. Your rate is going to be the percentage, and your time is going to be in years. So here it says, how long does it take, we're finding time this time, on an account with a principal of $10,000, so there's our principal, to earn $750 interest, this is our I, at a rate of 2%, there's our R. So we're going to plug those things into our equation. So what was our I? That was 750. Did we have our P? Yes, that was 10,000. Did we have the R? Yes, that was 2%, so 0.02. We didn't have the T, so I'm just going to put the letter T. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and plug this in. So when I put these two together, 10,000 times 0.02, I get 200. And over here I have 750, and I still have a T. Okay, I want to get T by itself. Divide by 200. Divide by 200. So 750 divided by 200 is going to give me 3.75 years. Okay, so once again, identifying the information. All right, so let's go ahead and try another one of those where we're finding the year. Oops. Okay, you put $1,000 in an account. That's our principal, that's what we put in there. The account earns $100 simple interest. So this is our interest. In 4 years, there's our time. What is the annual interest rate? So this time they're asking us to find the interest rate, okay? So we're gonna plug in what we know. Do we know the I? Yep, that's 100. The P is 1,000. Oops. We don't know the R, so I'll come back to that, but the T is 4 years. So I'm gonna put R at the end. Okay, so we'll put these together. 4,000. When I put those together, and then I still have an R, equals 100. So now we'll divide by 4,000. Divide by 4,000. So 100 divided by 4,000 gives us 0.025. Remember, they're asking for percent rate. So 2 places makes it 2.5%. Okay? Let's try another one. Okay, you put $350 in an account. There's what we put in, that's our principal. The account earns $17.50 in simple interest. This is our interest. In 2.5 years, there's our time. What is the annual interest rate? Okay, so we'll plug everything in. Our I was $17.50. Our P was $350. Our R we don't have, so I'm going to leave that for now. Our T was 2.5. So we'll put the R at the end. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and straighten this out. So 350 times 2.5 gives me 875 here. And then I still have an R there, and then 1750. Okay, so I want to divide by 875. Divide by 875. So 17.5 divided by 875. When I do that, I get 0.02. Okay, 2 places would make this 2%. Okay, so you should get 2% for your interest rate on that one. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and slide one of these out, and you're gonna try it on your own. And I'm not gonna identify, I want you to try and identify each of the pieces. Remember, principal is the amount of money that you put in. Oops, I don't want that one, just a second. I meant to pull out my loan one. Okay, so it says you borrow $600. So when you borrow that, it's kind of like your principal, how much money you took out. The simple interest rate is 15%. You pay off the loan over 5 years. How much do you pay for the loan? Okay, principal, percent rate, time. They want to know how much you're going to pay for the whole loan. So not just the interest. You're going to have to start out by doing the interest. Okay, so we're going to start out with just this first question. Our interest equals our principal is 600 times our rate is 0.15 or 15% times our time is 5 years. Okay, so that's the first scenario, just to figure out how much interest we're going to pay. The second scenario says how much money would you save if you had paid off the loan in over 2 years? So let's just do these both at the same time, because the only thing that's going to change is this amount of time. So I'm going to set up a second equation. It's still, everything else is the same. It's just that instead of having 5, we're going to have 2 years at the end. Okay, so let's see what our interest is in each of these. So 600 times 0.15 times 5. So in the end, on a 5-year plan, I'm going to pay $450 in interest. So I'm going to have to pay $450 more for that loan of 600. So really, I'm going to pay $1,050. Okay. So if I had just borrowed the loan or borrowed that $600 over 2 years, so 600 times 0.15 times 2 years gives me $180. Now that's how much I'm going to have to pay above the $600. So that would be a $780 item. Okay, we want to find the difference in the amount that I ended up paying here. So that's how much more I'm going to have to pay. So over 5 years, it was $450. 2 years, it was $180. We're going to subtract between those to see how much more I ended up paying over the 5-year plan. And that was $270 more. So if I choose to take that loan out for that 5 years, I'm going to end up paying $270 more than a person that decided to take that loan out for only 2 years. Okay. Now your loan payments are probably lower at the 5-year rate, but you end up paying $270 more. That's almost, not quite, but almost half of what your original loan was. Okay. So you have to remember that when you borrow money and you borrow money out, you're going to pay an interest rate to the bank to be able to use their money. And it ends up that you end up paying, like if this was a violin, you would have paid over a 5-year plan, you would have paid $1,050. Whereas over a 2-year plan, you would have only paid what? 600 plus 180 would give us $780. So that $600 violin for the 5-year people cost them $1,050, and for the 2-year people it was $780. For somebody that can pay out of pocket, they're saving a lot of money without having to take a loan out. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. Like I said, being able to identify your principal, that's the amount of money either that you borrow as a loan or the amount of money that you put into an account. Times your rate, that's your percentage, times the amount of time, and with simple interest we use years, okay, because we want to keep it simple. And then our interest is how much money we are going to earn from that or that we're going to have to pay back from a loan. So good luck with this.